In the early hours of a quiet Caribbean night, the sea looked calm. No storms, no distress calls, just a massive oil tanker cutting through the water under a darkened sky. To the naked eye, it was just another ship. But to American satellites, it was a red flag. Somewhere above the earth, invisible eyes noticed something unusual. The tanker changed course, not slightly, not naturally. It turned away, and in modern geopolitics, a ship that suddenly runs is a ship that knows it has been seen. Oil is the lifeblood of the global economy. Every country needs it. Every military depends on it. Every modern society runs on it. But oil is also power. When a country sells oil, it earns money. When that money flows, governments survive. Armies get funded, influence grows. That's why oil has always been political. And under President Donald Trump, oil became a battlefield without bombs. Trump's worldview was simple. If you cut the money, you cut the power. Sanctions were his weapon of choice. And oil tankers were moving targets. From 2017 onward, the Trump administration launched one of the most aggressive sanctions campaigns in modern history. Countries accused of destabilizing regions, funding hostile groups, threatening U.S. interests found themselves economically isolated. Oil exports were restricted. Bank accounts were frozen. Shipping networks were monitored. This strategy became known as maximum pressure. No negotiations first, no patience. Pressure, immediately. Under this policy, oil tankers were no longer neutral commercial vessels. They were evidence, leverage, sometimes even traps. And the tanker in the Caribbean was suspected of carrying sanctioned oil, possibly disguised under false ownership and false destination records. The Caribbean Sea is one of the most monitored maritime regions in the world. Why? Because it sits between the Americas' major shipping lanes, strategic U.S. naval routes, U.S. Navy destroyers, Coast Guard cutters, and surveillance aircraft operate here constantly. When the tanker altered course, analysts noticed immediately. Then came the second red flag. Its tracking signal, the eye's transponder, went silent. That move is legal only in rare circumstances. But in geopolitics, it's often a confession. Turning off a transponder doesn't make a ship invisible, it makes it suspicious. The U.S. military uses thermal satellite imaging, radar mapping, maritime intelligence sharing, signal interception, even the heat from the ship's engines can be tracked. The tanker thought it had disappeared. In reality, it had just entered the spotlight. Instead of intercepting it immediately, the U.S. Navy made a calculated decision. They followed, quietly, patiently, because chasing too fast can end a story. Letting it run reveals everything. The tanker crossed the Atlantic Ocean, one of the busiest shipping routes on Earth. Commercial ships passed it daily. Naval patrols stayed distant. But somewhere beyond the horizon, U.S. warships moved in parallel. No radio contact, no warnings, just presence. This wasn't about capture, it was about control. As days turned into weeks, the tanker faced a growing problem. Ports refused entry. Why? Because accepting the ship meant risking U.S. sanctions, frozen assets, legal battles, diplomatic consequences. Insurance companies backed away. Banks froze transactions. The tanker was sailing, but it was already economically dead. Instead of heading toward Europe or the Middle East, the tanker turned south, around Africa. This route costs more, takes longer, burns fuel, but it avoids some Western choke points. Or at least, that was the plan. What the crew didn't realize was that the Indian Ocean is one of the most militarized seas on Earth, and the U.S. Navy never left. By the time the tanker reached the Indian Ocean, the chase was no longer secret. Intelligence agencies were aware. All eyes were briefed. Legal cases were prepared. The United States now had proof of sanctions violations, mapped supply chains, identified buyers the tanker had run. The Navy had followed. And the outcome was already decided, without a single shot fired. This wasn't a Hollywood chase. It was something more dangerous, a demonstration of global reach. Under Donald Trump, American power didn't always arrive with explosions. Sometimes it arrived as silence, a shadow on the horizon. A ship that could run, but could never escape. From the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean, one truth became clear. In the modern world, visibility is power. And the U.S. Navy sees everything.